Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour on the Nikon D5000. Here it is, the D5000. This is the successor to the D60, which makes it Nikon's latest entry-level DSLR, although in many respects it actually represents a step up from the real budget models. Like the D60, it comes supplied in a kit, if you choose so, with the 18 to 55mm VR lens. That's VR for vibration reduction to help counteract for camera shake. Now the easiest way to think about the D5000 is as a D60 with the D90 sensor and HD movie recording and one very special new feature around the back that I'll show you in just a moment. So without further ado, let's take a look at the new features of this camera. As I mentioned a moment ago, the D5000 employs exactly the same sensor as the D90. That means you enjoy 12.2 megapixel quality and also sensitivity that goes up to 6400 ISO. Nikon refers to that as its high 1 setting. The continuous shooting speed is a respectable 4 frames per second. Now that might be slightly down from the 4.5 frames per second of the Nikon D90, but it's considerably faster than the 3 frames per second of the D60. Here's how it sounds in practice. The D5000 is fitted with a 2.7-inch 230K monitor, and like the D60 before it, this information rotates to always remain upright and easy to read. What makes this screen really special though is that it's fully articulated. If you grab one of these handles at the top of the screen, you can flip it out and twist it to almost any angle. This makes it very easy for composing at low angles, or equally you could turn the screen around and compose, say, over the heads of crowds. Alternatively, you could turn the screen around and back on itself for protection. This type of flexibility gives you great compositional control when you're shooting in live view, and you can even turn the monitor around for a self-portrait. However, notice you won't be doing that while the camera is mounted on a tripod, because the tripod itself will obviously block the monitor here, which is hinged at the bottom. The D5000's user interface is designed to be very easy to use for beginners. So like previous models, you get things like a graphical representation of the actual iris inside the lens here, representing the different aperture values. I'm in aperture priority now, so if I turn the thumb wheel here, you can see the F number increase, and as that increases, the iris gets smaller. This is actually what's going on inside the lens right now, so it's very useful for beginners to be able to visualize that. However, if you prefer a more conventional approach, you can simply go into the menu here and change the info display format from graphic to classic. There's also a choice of colours. Now you've got rid of that graphic there and you've got a more technical display if that's the sort of thing you prefer. Now, like the D60 before it, if you want to change any settings, you start by pressing the I button to the bottom left hand side of the screen. This allows you to move a yellow highlighter over various options that run down the right hand side and below the screen here. And if you want to change anything, like for example the ISO sensitivity, just highlight it, press OK, and you now get a dedicated menu that lets you change it, along with a little picture here on the side showing you an example of how you might use that different settings. I'll show you that again in the white balance option here, going from auto perhaps to indoor lighting, and then again a representation here on the side of how you might use that. Now this is very easy to use, but it can also be frustratingly slow if you're an enthusiast who, say, wants to change the ISO right now and they have to go through this interface in order to get it. There is a programmable function key on the D5000, but of course that can only do one option. If you're confused at any point, you can also press the question mark button here, and this will give you some information, for example here about the ISO sensitivity. So it really is a very friendly and easy camera to use. Live view on the D5000 works pretty much the same way as on the D90 before it. To enter it, simply press the LV button to the right of the screen. To prove that I'm in live view, I'll just wiggle my fingers in front of the camera's lens right now. Now there's only one autofocusing option in live view mode here. Just like the D90, it's contrast based only, so that means that there's no interruption to the image when you autofocus and there's no noise of the mirror flipping, but it also means it's fairly slow. I'll give you an example of that right now. To autofocus, you actually half press the shutter release, so that's already a lot more intuitive than pressing the autofocus lock button on the Canon models. Here's what happens. So you see that it took about 2 or 3 seconds before it locked on, but again there was no interruption to the image and there was also no noise of the mirror flipping. Now you can overlay various graphics on the screen by pressing the info button at the top. First of all, you can see some shooting information. You can overlay a grid there. I'll just Put my hand in front of the lens to make that more clear. Press the info button once more and you can shrink that live view and get some more shooting information running down the side. You'll notice though there's no live histogram option. But what you can do is magnify a certain area, and you can move this frame around to have a specific look at something. I'll just move it right over here and then use these magnify buttons here to take a closer look. That's the maximum magnification right now, and it's slightly fuzzy, the view, compared to what you get on the Canon models, but it is still allowing you to get a very precise view and also an accurate representation of the focusing. I'm going to zoom out just one step and then show you the autofocusing once more. So again, it took a couple of seconds, but I know that what I'm getting there is going to be pin sharp. Externally, the D5000 looks like a chunkier version of the D60, although there are of course a few differences. With the logo here, you'll see 3 tiny holes for the built-in microphone, that's for the movie mode. Round the back, of course, dominated by the articulated screen, and the hinge here makes the body quite tall compared to other entry-level DSLRs. Let's power the camera off here and have a look at the ports on the side. The middle port is your usual combined USB and TV output. But above this you've got a port for the optional GPS accessory, and below that you've got a mini HDMI port, of course for connecting to high definition TVs. One of the headline features of the D5000 is of course its HD movie mode, and you're watching an example of it right now. I'm stood about 1 metre in front of the camera, and the sound you hear is recorded by the built-in microphone. The movie mode on the D5000 is pretty much inherited wholesale from the higher end D90. As such, the best quality mode gives you 720p, recorded at 24 frames per second with mono sound from the built-in microphone. Sadly, there's still no external microphone input, and focusing is still manual once you start filming. The videos themselves are compressed using the Motion JPEG format. That might seem a bit old-fashioned compared to the H.264 format of Canon's latest cameras, but it does make it a lot easier to edit. This first clip was filmed handheld with vibration reduction enabled on the lens. As I pan around the boat here, you can see the D5000 automatically adjusting its exposure. Now if you'd really like to see what the quality looks like on your own computer, I've got a similar clip filmed moments earlier which you can download for yourself at our full review at cameralabs.com. Now like other DSLRs with movie mode, you can of course zoom the lens while you're filming by simply twisting the zoom ring, but this is best done with the camera mounted on a tripod. It's also possible to achieve a very shallow depth of field and selectively focus from one area to another. This is something that's difficult to achieve with a normal camcorder. The D5000 is another highly compelling entry-level DSLR from Nikon, and it's a great choice for beginners who want to step up from a real budget model. This camera features great image quality, high definition movie recording, and a fully articulated screen on the back that allows you to shoot at unusual angles with ease. The user interface is also very easy to use if you're a beginner. If this is your first DSLR, this camera will guide you through the options and make things a lot easier for you. However, there are some downsides to the D5000. That easy user interface can prove a little frustrating for enthusiasts or people who know their way around a DSLR. It can be a little slow to use at times. And it should also be noted that like the D60, the D40X and the D40 before it, this body does not feature a motor to autofocus older lenses. So if you want to autofocus with this camera, you'll need a lens that has its own focusing motor, which in Nikon's terminology means you're looking for an AFS model, like this kit lens. Although to be honest, neither of those are really going to affect the target audience for this camera. Much more importantly though, are its two major rivals, Canon's EOS 500D or Rebel T1i as it's known in North America, and the Olympus E620. Both of those cameras have got some very compelling features. The Canon's higher resolution and has a much more detailed 3-inch screen on the rear. The Olympus model also has a flip-out screen, but built-in image stabilization that works with any lens you attach. So as always, there's a lot to weigh up, but as always, we've done that comparison for you over at cameralabs.com. We've compared all the features of these 3 cameras and pointed out which ones are going to be best for you if you're into certain types of photography. We've also compared their image quality at all sensitivities to show you exactly what happens in terms of noise levels and real-life resolution. So if you're in the market for a step up from a budget entry-level DSLR and are interested in the D5000 or indeed the new Canon and Olympus models, then check out our full review. As always, you'll find it at cameralabs.com.